How can we use our brains so that we can move from guns and bullets to brains and wits?
Very relevant question. We have this mass of protoplasm, as I said earlier, which we barely use to our greatest benefit. The first is, let me give you an insight. This is one of my ex-students. The human brain, a baby's head is encasing this. Every baby looks perhaps a bit like E.T., adorable, cute, cuddly, and this is phenomenal. This is the organ of genius, and it's moving, responding, learning, seeking, searching, and these skills are de-geniused once the baby goes to school, because it's not encouraged to ask questions. It's unilaterally dictated to and said, do what I say. Sit up, pay attention, but don't ask questions. So Neil Postman, an educator, said that children enter school as question marks and leave as periods. You've never got to stop asking questions. If you take a question mark and turn it upside down, it becomes a hook. You see what happens then, if you don't do all of this, you become a grown-up executive with a brain like this. And then companies have a collection of brains like this. And then the boss says, let's juggle these around and give me genius. And they can't, because these brains are stressed and distressed. And therefore, your question is apt. So my idea is that, say your brain is this big, boom, it gets like that. And very quickly. So, is this propaganda? What do I mean by this? Would it not help you if you could read a book really fast? I read 10 books a week minimum, 500 books a year. I wish I could read 100 books a week, 50,000 books a year, whatever. However, it's possible. You can do that too, and with no pain. Wouldn't it help you if you had several books worth of information collapsed onto one sheet of paper? It will help you, right? No turning the page and forgetting. There's no learning without memory. If you forget, you fail your exams. If you forget, you can't execute a decision, and you're going to be accused of inefficiency, and you're going to create blunders. There's no learning without memory. I repeat, learning systems do not contain memory in your schools and your colleges. No memory systems exist for you to be educated with. It's not part of your textbooks. Not one textbook in this country or any country have I seen with adequate mnemonics in there. This is one of my passions. Reading, memory, collapsing masses of information for businesses, for corporations, for schools, for colleges, for children, so that they can have a childhood and that they can learn at the speed of light. Now, what's the purpose of this? What's the benefit of it? The benefit is, when you have masses of information meaningfully collapsed, distilled onto one sheet of paper at a time, what happens is your review time, you need review. 6 to 7 reviews to transfer information from short-term to long-term memory. You need that. That is not mugging. That is intelligent reviewing. But when you review off one sheet of paper compared to stacks of paper, it's painless and it's highly efficient. So why should you review? Now you're listening to me. If we didn't review all of this, your short-term memory would sabotage it. But the value of reviewing and intelligent reviewing is that your brain then needs proteins manufactured to create long-term memories. It's a biochemical process, a neurochemical process, which is not taught in the classrooms. There's no drugs except the drugs in the brain. Your body is a drug factory. You don't need outside drugs. You need fun. You need smarts. You need interaction. You need engagement. You see, what's happening then is that people try, they fail, they complain. Then they try, they fail, they complain. They try, they fail, they complain. My proposition is, you try, you fail, you learn, you win. You try, you fail, you learn, you win. No complaining. If you don't do so well, you learn. You learn from where you failed. And you didn't fail. You had an experience. So cut out the negatives, right? So how do you get smarter? Learn the strategies of visual mapping. We are in a visual culture. You are visual kids. Right? Get visual in a deliberately meaningful way, where your visuals, your symbols and your images, etc., can be collapsed in a tiny little space with massive meaning. That means high intensity, massive extensivity. If business people knew how to do this, businesses would be thriving and giving you a promising future for which you would not have to struggle right now. If they knew how to read fast, in any format, books, papers, magazines, the screen, whatever. And if they knew how to hold that in memory and combine it with their archived knowledge and their wisdom and get creative with new ideas on the run at light speed in unreal time, they would be vastly more useful in society than shooting their mouths off about policies that are irrelevant. Okay? Synopsis, big subject. Can you kids learn this quick? Very quick. Do you need it? Indispensable. You do need it. Any ape can reach for a peanut. Only we can reach for the stars. Please reach for the stars.
How can we, the younger generation, inspire ourselves to reach up to your position?
My position is your position. I'm in a lower position than you. I look up to your generation. Please do not think that I'm above you. I am not. I'm just impassioned with wanting to open chambers of consciousness within you so that you excel. Look, many people approach something with aspiration, high hope, right? Then they have desperation. After that it's perspiration. And only at the end do they hope for inspiration. Imagine an institution, imagine a family, imagine a school, a society, a government, a country with inspired people inspiring people. The word inspiration comes from Latin. It means to breathe life into. When you inspire, you take in oxygen. When you expire, you breathe out oxygen. Every moment we are exchanging this. It's alternating. Inspiration, expiration, inspiration, expiration. But I know the meaning of what you are saying. You are asking for inspiration in the sense to inflame your soul, to be dazzling, to be brilliant. Today very good is very boring. Very good is not good enough. You've got to be dazzling. You've got to be inspired. On a bad day, you've got to be inspired. And yesterday I came across somebody declaring to me that some of his friends are going to work in a very boring office and the only inspiring moments are after work. I said, wow, they're losing 8 to 10 hours of their lives every day in doing boring work, and they don't realize that everything connects to everything else. So if something is boring, everything becomes boring. If something is fascinating, everything becomes fascinating. Right? So if I took a bowl of water here that is delicious and you put one drop of cyanide over there, I'll never touch it. Everything connects to everything else. You understand? If you feel uninspired, go and look for somebody else who's worse off than you and lift them up. If you feel somebody is burning out, right, like a dying coal, be that flaming coal that comes next to them and inflame them. Bring them back to life. There are too many people busy dying, not busy living. Right? This is a learning revolution that needs to be created. This is a learning economy. It's not a dead brain economy. You need to move ahead. You need to lead. Leadership is a crisis over here. There are too many misleaders. There's no such thing as a bad leader. Either you're a leader or you're not a leader. Right? The future depends upon your leadership. So what am I looking for? Learning leadership. Leading learnership. I want you people to have brain clubs across this nation. I want you people to be the leaders of those brain clubs. I want to help you propagate these brain clubs for your glory so that you go into the future with dazzling outcomes.
When we talk about education, for students it mostly means memorizing without understanding. So how can classroom education be made more innovative and creative so that students become more active in learning? Yeah,
education. I'm always confused by the word in the way that it is being practiced. If you take, I played around with this word a bit for one of the books I'm writing. If you take the word education and juggle up the letters, it'll make cautioned. And if you juggle up the letters again, it'll make auctioned. It'll also make idea count, and it'll also make action due. All of these cases are the same letters, E-D-U-C-A-T-I-O-N, juggled around, and they give you that. So I will play with that and answer your question. And I say you've got to be cautioned about being in danger of being auctioned, because every idea counts in order for you to realize that action is due. If you take the words teachers and students, you will get the stranded nutcases if you play around with the letters. Teachers must learn from students, students must learn from teachers, teachers must be taught by students, students must be taught by teachers. There must be an intermingling and an interactivity between all parts. What's happening is that, to further answer your question, here's a model of the brain. And if you take this model like this, What happens is when a baby is born, as I showed you earlier, all of this is working. All of this is working. The baby is communicating with you, engaged with you, communicating and connecting with you. But what happens is that as the baby goes a little older and goes into a disciplinarian institution, the authority figure tells the baby a certain set of strictures, gives it stipulations, not stimulations. And the baby loses this part of the brain. That part is imagination, sense of color, imagery, wonderment, play, gone. And then it says, you pay attention to me and do your reading, writing, arithmetic according to the way I know best. And then this one is stressed. It says gone. And this part of the brain, the central part, is your emotional section, where you have your feelings, your falling in love, your remembrances, and your long-term memories. And this is getting additional pressure now because the top half is all gone now. And this one gives up and you come down here, right to the bottom, which is the reptilian brain. You're in shock. You have brain lock. And smart students are giving stupid, sensational answers to meaningless experiences. That is mugging. That is not education. The choice today is education or extinction. But what you have correctly described is only termed education, but is not education. So how do they do it in the classroom? Bring somebody like me in the sense that you need to have first the teacher entering the classroom respecting the student. The student must begin with I don't know, and the teacher must begin with I definitely don't know, and I better find out. So the teacher does research, but must engage the students in the research, so it's not only active, it's interactive and perpetual and ongoing. And the classroom must be an academy of joy. The JQ, the joy quotient, must be incredibly high every time, so that when the bell rings for the next class, they don't want to leave their seats. They don't need glue to glue them to their seats. It's fascination, it's interest, right? It's passion for learning. If you go back to the ancient Greek and you take the word P-A-I-D-I-A, it's the concept of play. The Greeks knew that play was a vital element of life. But if you take the same letters, P-A-I-D-I-A, and interject an E there, P-A-I-D-E-I-A, it is the concept of education. So the Greeks knew that when you infused play into education, learning was incredibly powerful. I have an entire system, very easy to pick up, whereby your country needs this to infuse into every classroom at every level. Primary, kindergarten, secondary, college, corporate education, and for senior citizens, so that you can tap into their wisdom and their experiences. And what's happening is that there's a strata of society that's too young to die and too old to live, and they've given up. And they are out of tune with your generation. And your generation is losing touch with a vital aspect, vital strata of society that can be of value to you, because they hold memories, they hold experiences that you can recombine into fresh outcomes for you, right? So your classroom must be inquiry based. You must have learning safaris. You must have festivals of learning within your classroom. Every day should be a celebration, not just Founders Day or something like that. Most Founders Day are boring dead-end events, right? They're cul-de-sacs of intellectual degradation, right? But they must be joyous, they must be fun, they must be interactively vibrant. So that's what your classroom must be like. I hope I am in a position to one day give you a demonstration. The custodian of my intellect, my soul, my spirit is a lady called Nandita Hanneman over here. So if you need to track me down, you need to catch her first. Wow, she's fearsomely, deliciously delectable, and she's beautiful. So get to her first.
With this, we've come to the end of today's episode. We hope you found the program meaningful. We look forward to your feedbacks. Our email address is youthtya@gmail.com. We will be back next week at the same time. Till then, have a nice week. Namaste.